everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm Robbie Craig of the Flip Flop Flipper, and we're gonna talk about an exciting, dynamic conversation that we're gonna have on this YouTube channel that's gonna piss some people off. Hopefully it's gonna generate a whole bunch of conversations inside of the comments. I wanna talk to you guys today about the difference between socialism and capitalism and why we feel one of these systems is vastly better than the others, and how it ties to entrepreneurism and buying real estate, which is what we do. We are value-add real estate investors, serial entrepreneurs, and we encourage on this channel all of the time for all of you guys to become entrepreneurs and to become real estate investors and to partner with people who are like-minded. That's how we expand our business. We invite partnerships on this channel, and we want to invite you to partner with us either in a business inside of an opportunity zone or in a real estate deal that we're going to renovate to its highest and best use and peel off some passive income down the road, hold it for a long, long time, and then make a bunch of money together. That's what excites us. That's what we get into. That's why you like and subscribe to the channel, and that's why you send me an email at theflipflopflipperpr@gmail.com if that interests you. If you want to partner with us either in a business or on a real estate venture or both, that's what we're into, guys. Hopefully that's why you're here. So as we get into this, guys, let me tell you how I kind of did my research. I'm using this AI. I think it's ChatGPT. I got a new app. I think it's tied to ChatGPT. And so I asked some questions. I pulled off some of the stuff that the ChatGPT gave me, and I'm going to use it as what I'm going to rely on when I'm talking about who is socialist, who is capitalist, where socialism worked, where has capitalism worked, what are some of the attributes of socialism and capitalism. So I'm getting this, I think, kind of common knowledge off of ChatGPT. That's what we're using. Inside of the comments, you can butcher me for it. I don't care. I'm a guy on the internet that does real estate, that invests in businesses, that buys value-add real estate, invests for passive income. That's what we're all about. But I want to have this conversation because I think it's important for someone out there who's thinking about whether or not they want to be a socialist or a capitalist, and whether or not they want to be living a life tied to something that's run by the government or tied to something that they have control over, like your own business, or like a piece of real estate that can throw off passive income. So let's talk about the most shocking thing that I found when I asked ChatGPT about socialism versus capitalism. And the question that I put out there was, what's an example of a country that started out as a socialist country and has been successful? And guys, it almost knocked me over when the answer came back that the success story that people who are socialists would point to is Cuba. I'm from Florida, and so my experience with Cuban people and with Cuba itself is that it's a shit show. It's not been good in my life. My friends who are Cuban that live in Florida now, man, some of the people that escaped Cuba, the ways that they had to do it were life-threatening. They were dangerous, but they needed to leave that country because socialism wasn't working for them. They were gonna die if they didn't get out of there. That's what I believe. That's what I've been told. I have friends whose families were really well off before the socialist revolution and Castro took over, and they left on a dinghy, on a boat, you know, anything that would float, and tried to get themselves to the United States of America. They didn't do that because it was all going well in Cuba. They did that because they were losing their freedom and their lives. So the fact that the AI pointed to Cuba as a success story for socialism, to me, just, again, it nearly put me on the floor. I could not believe it. I did not expect it. I really expected ChatGPT to come back with something like Denmark or Sweden or Norway, one of these countries that they're not quite fully socialism and they still have portions of capitalism, but that's not what they pointed to. And so, wow, what do you guys think about that? Leave me a comment. What do you think about the fact that a good example of a country being a success with socialism is Cuba? Here are some of the things that the AI told me about Cuba and why it's a success as a socialist country. After Fidel Castro took over in a socialist revolution and brought the country to a communist dictatorship, which is what happens with socialism, the Cuban government, they implemented various social policies, including nationalization of industries, collectivization of agriculture, and the establishment of a universal health care and education system. Cuba has achieved high levels of literacy and healthcare access and social equality compared to many other countries in the region. I want you guys to answer in the comments here, do you want to be like Cuba and be equal with all of your other socialist friends on the island? You get the same health care that they get. It may be bad. You get the same education that they get. It's whatever the government tells you that it is. That's what you get to learn. You don't ever get to have your own business. You get fed what they feed you. They kill you if they want to kill you. They take any land that you ever had and don't allow you to have private ownership of business or land. Is that the kind of equality that some of you wish for and that you hope for? Because for me, I want nothing to do with it. Nothing at all. And I'm interested to hear those of you out there who love the socialist idea. And I get that there is an ideal socialism and that maybe no one's ever gotten it right. But if you study this stuff, even though this ideal sounds really good and it does often appeal to young people who think that you're going to be equal and everything. And that, guys, is my premise, that it doesn't matter if you're in a capitalist society or if you're in a socialist society, there are always going to be people that have more than other people. There are always going to be people that are higher up the food chain and people that are lower on the food chain. The great thing that I see about capitalism is that it's the best way for people who are at the bottom to actually fight their way up and move their way up. I think that once you have a fully established socialist system, it becomes extremely difficult. And from what I have seen with my own personal eyes, traveling the world and being in places where they were just recently communist and socialist, and now it's changed, I hear again and again that when it was socialist, yeah, everybody might be equal, but that meant you're equally starving, you're equally punished, you're equally afraid, you're equally not free. And then there are still other people that are more equal, that we're being fed better, so that there are always haves and have-nots. Here's the Animal Farm quote from George Orwell. It says, one of the pigs says, "All animals are equal, but some of the animals are more equal than others." I hope that I get a lot of comments, guys. I hope that you tell me why you think socialism is great, or tell me why you think capitalism is great. And you guys in the comments below, assuming that we do get lots of comments, guys, have conversations. This is important. Here's another great quote from George Orwell, just so we're on the George Orwell bandwagon right now. "Who controls the past controls the future, and he who controls the present controls the past." And so I think we see that today with revisionist history in the live, everyday mainstream media that we see. I've been very vocal about this. I don't trust the media. I don't watch the news. None of it. Not Fox, not CNN, not MSNBC. I think they're all garbage, and I think they're all pitching us something. They're all selling us something, and so they have a storyline that they sell as the news, and it's not really true. It used to be 25, 30, 40 years ago that someone reported the news the way that it happened. We've lost that, and it's just gone, and I hope that we get it back, but I don't know that we ever will. All right, so guys, obviously, if you watch this channel for any length of time, if you've seen any of other content, or if you've just listened to what I've just said for the last few minutes, clearly, I believe that capitalism is a better system than socialism. So I asked ChatGPT, what's a good example of a capitalist society? And guess what it popped up as? The very first thing was the United States of America. I tend to agree. And let me read you some of the things that it said about why the United States is a good example of capitalism. So here are the other countries that popped up besides Cuba as good examples of socialist countries. And while they're shocking, they're still not as shocking as Cuba being the top go-to. But the other countries that quickly came up on the list as good examples of socialism would be China, Vietnam, Laos, North Korea. North Korea, you're good socialists there. You're not allowed to move in and out of your country, and you might be killed at any time for any reason. And Venezuela. And Venezuela just recently was one of the few most profitable countries in the world, and they went socialist. And guess what? People are starving there. People are killing each other to get out of Venezuela. Venezuela is a beautiful country in South America that's just turned into a complete shit show as it's embraced this socialism, this socialist dictator stuff that always happens with socialism. The ideal is so great and it sounds so good, but the implementation of it time after time after time is a complete and utter failure, and really just death and chaos and starvation. That's what you get. So guys, again, obviously I lean towards capitalism. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a real estate investor. I encourage on this channel you to become an entrepreneur and you to become a real estate investor. And we expand our business and businesses through partnering with like-minded people. And you can really only do that in a capitalist society. So when I asked ChatGPT to name the good example of a capitalist society, guess what the #1 answer was? It came up with the United States of America. The United States has a market-based economy where you can have private ownership and corporate ownership of the means of production. Capitalist society like the United States of America encourage entrepreneurship, which we encourage as well. They encourage competition between businesses and the belief that competition will breed advancement. And so that is what happens in a capitalist society. Someone comes out with a car, Ford, and then someone else comes out with another car and they do it better. And then someone else comes out with another car and another, and you end up with the Ferrari. So that's how Ferrari gets there, is through entrepreneurs who are building stuff, who are competing with each other, and they are one-upping each other. They are creating things, they're creating buildings, they are creating culture and a competitive business environment that has fostered technological advancements, scientific research, and innovation across various sectors. Here's one other thing that I find fascinating that's different between a capitalist market-based economy versus a socialist economy. If you think about global iconic businesses, they are started in these places like the United States of America or Great Britain. They're started in places that have a capitalist economy. You can't really, and maybe you can in the comments, think of a global brand that you know, like, and love, and just put it in the comments. Tell me which one it is that has been started by a socialist country. So one thing that the ChatGPT did tell me is that the United States is considered to be generally considered to have capitalist system with some socialistic elements. And those would be our social programs. Those would be the welfare programs. Those would be the healthcare stuff that we're trying to implement. There obviously needs to be a good mix. And we believe that the United States of America is a good mix and is the beacon on the hill. It's the one that people look to for where they would want to live. And you can see that throughout the world, even today, as the United States is moving more closely towards socialism and away from capitalism. People who are really in places that are socialist are still fleeing wherever they're at and doing everything that they can to get to the United States of America. And guys, that's just the truth of the matter. That's the fact. If socialism was so damn good, then why are you coming across the river and hiking thousands of miles from your country in South America to cross the border illegally in the United States of America? Capitalism, it inspires competition because everybody's after profit, right? So I think that it can be oversimplified in saying that in a capitalist spot, you're only after profits. And I don't think that that's really the truth. I think just like in running a country, there needs to be a mix. In running a successful company, you have to be doing some good for the society, not just looking for the bottom line and not just looking for one-time profits, but providing value to people again and again. And when you can do that, you can have a successful business, you can become a successful entrepreneur. But it's more than just about the bottom line, the profits. Of course, the profits need to come, but a good business is going to help the most amount of people that it possibly can. It's going to provide value to those that it's servicing. That's where capitalism thrives. You're also, in a capitalist society, going to see wages rise as businesses get better. So I can speak to my own personal venture in this capitalism, and as an entrepreneur and as a real estate investor, we don't pay people minimum wage. So we pay people higher than minimum wage across the whole wide range of businesses. And to the extent that we've ever paid people minimum wage, the idea was that was just a time where you would come in and learn a skill set. And then as soon as you've learned the skill set, you'd get a raise. So I have another friend who has a business on the island of Puerto Rico where he's got a roofing business, and he hires people at minimum wage while he teaches them to be a roofer. And he goes on a 90-day trial basis. At the end of 90 days, you get one of two things. You've either learned the skill set and you get a raise, a nice raise, or you get asked not to come back. So there is no long-term minimum wage with this guy's business. I heard about that and I thought that's pretty genius, right? Like you don't want to have people working at minimum wage doing a bad job. You want people to come in and learn a skill set so that you can pay them more. And our philosophy with hotel businesses, with any business really that we've been in across a wide variety of the spectrum, We want to have good employees who get paid really well. If you ever spend any time with me, it's really important for me that the people around me are making money. That's something that I want to see of my friends, my employees, the people that reach out to me and are asking for advice. We're trying to lift people up, and we believe that you can lift people up through capitalism. Here I'm gonna go back to something that the ChatGPT told me about capitalism and socialism, and it says that the capitalism allows for a wider income disparity. And while I believe that's true, capitalism may allow for a wider income disparity, it also allows for a greater chance at growth, a greater chance to move up the ladder. Socialism aims for a more equitable distribution. And unfortunately, with that, what you will find and what I have found through personal experience is that in socialist countries that I've been in, everybody may be equal, but you're equally poor, you're equally not well off, right? So that's something that I see, that I've seen throughout my travels around the world, and I've purposely visited many, many countries that were just recently communist. So we're talking about around 1989 to 1992, several countries. The wall came down at the end of 1989. I was there in Berlin, Germany, when the wall came down. I've got a piece of the wall where we hammered that wall down as a high school senior, and that was an exciting time, right? Like, so Russia was failing, the USSR was breaking up, and East Germany became free. And then right after that, several other countries also gained their independence and gained their freedom and got outside of this socialist communist stuff. And as I've traveled through places like Hungary and Poland, Romania, Croatia, Montenegro, so all of these countries were recently in this socialist communist government, and they had this shift to a different kind of economy, which was more capitalist. To the extent that I've traveled in these countries and talked to people about the past versus the present, you get some people who want to go back to the past, and you get other people who are desperate to never go back to the past. And they like the newfound freedoms. They like to be able to have a business. There are others that they want to have the days of the government controlling stuff. So I guess the conversation is here inside of our chat, inside of the comments, is where would you guys rather be? So for me, I know about myself, I'd prefer to struggle with freedom than to struggle with the government being over-controlling and providing for me. I don't ever think that the government can do something as well as someone in the private sector. So anyways, pick a business that the government is involved with and compare it to a public sector business that's similar. I would argue that almost every time the government doesn't run it as well, the government isn't as efficient, the government just can't keep up with private industry. Private industry is going to do a better job, I believe, every time. What do you guys think? Leave me a comment. Here's some other differences that I find fascinating about capitalism or socialism. A capitalist society generally advocates for limited government and giving more control to the people, allowing the people to have upward mobility. This is what you find in a government system like we have in the United States, where you have capitalism is at the forefront of it. The small business is the backbone of our economy. The people have the ability to start at the bottom. It doesn't matter what you're born into. It doesn't matter if you grew up poor or without a mom or a dad, you had hardships. There are people that let that keep them down, and then there are people that rise above that and move up the social ladder. So in socialism, the opposite is true, involves a much more prominent role of the government. And so the government makes decisions on industry. The government makes decisions on production. The government makes decisions that become controlling. And what happens with government is it's always expanding, and it wants more and more power. The capitalist wants less government. The socialist wants more government. Where do you stand? Leave me a comment. Let me know. I know that there's a segment of you that are enamored with this socialism, and you want that. For me, I'd rather have the freedom. I'd rather be able to start my own business, and I'd rather be responsible for whether or not I get to eat my next meal. And I've said this on other videos that I've put out there. I like to know when I look in the mirror if something has gone well for me, it's because I worked hard and I made it happen. Or if something goes well, it goes poorly for me, then I can look in the mirror and say, damn it, Robbie, you need to step up. You didn't get it done in this case. That's just how I'm wired, right? And I think that's probably how many of you that watch my channel regularly are wired. You probably lean more towards this freedom, this ability to have your own business, the ability to have control, the ability to bring the people with you and rise everybody up through the businesses that you're involved with. And I lean that way as well. And then there's going to be a segment of you that are going to see this somehow because it's going to be provocative. You're not typically going to like my channel because we do lean that way, but I'm happy to have a conversation with you inside of the comments. So if you've got a great argument on why socialism would be better, put it in the comments. Let's have the discussion. And I hope that the community goes in and checks these comments and that there's a lively conversation. Guys, try to be respectful of each other. Put out your ideas, and then other people debate those ideas. It's okay to disagree. It's good to have the conversation. And I will end with this, that even though I lean way more heavily towards the capitalist side of things than the socialist side of things, I do want to recognize that the very best countries that are out there, including the United States, they merge the two together. So they're not fully socialist, they're not fully capitalist, there is a mix, and there's an important mix, and that's what makes for a great country. Yeah, so it's important to remember that both sides of the socialism sector and the capitalism sector, in good, flourishing economies and countries, there's going to be a healthy mix. And that's true in England, that's true in the United States, it's true in France and all throughout Europe. And so to the degree that it's more true that there's a healthy mix, that's where the countries lie where I would like to live or I would like to do business. I will give you this. The countries that the ChatGPT put out there as examples of socialists and examples of capitalist societies. And so on the one side, on socialism, they named Cuba, they named China, Laos, Vietnam, Venezuela, North Korea. That's 6. So they named 6 that I really would not want to be a part of. These 6 socialist examples where they're extreme on the socialism and less on the capitalism, although China is a capitalist, communist country. These places are not good for business. These places do not promote freedom. These places are not places that I would like to live. That's not my ideal life. Contrast that with the countries that the ChatGPT said were good for capitalism: the United States of America, Switzerland, England, Germany. So those are the countries that are leaning more capitalist. Those are places that I would like to live. They are pro-business. They are pro-freedom. And so, again, I ask the question, which do you resonate with? Which would you prefer? Do you prefer those countries that are leaning extreme socialism and that's what you want? That's where you want to take our country, the United States of America? Or do you lean with those countries that are more heavily leaning towards capitalism and less government and freedom? I, for one, want to live in those places where I'm free to have my own business, I'm free to do my own things, make my own mistakes, and I don't have to rely on the government for anything. I'm perfectly happy to never be on any kind of government program. That doesn't mean that others shouldn't be on government programs, and I'm not saying that we should eliminate government programs, but I like the capitalists way more than I like the socialists, and I want to know from you. I want to have this conversation inside of the chat, and we'll do a follow-up video. One thing that I know will come up is that you're going to name some countries like Denmark and Sweden and Norway and Finland as countries that are more socialist leaning, and they still have some capitalist tendencies, but they've gone further left than the United States or the United Kingdom. And I've actually lived in and been in all of those countries. I've been to Sweden, I've been to Denmark, I've been to Norway, I've been to Finland. I've lived in Denmark, and it's a beautiful country, and I can agree that it's a nice life. But I will also tell you this, while when I was living in Denmark, I was playing basketball, I was working for peanuts, and my tax rate on my peanuts was half of the peanut they took, and I wasn't making much money, guys. I'm talking like $20,000 or less. So if I brought in 20 grand, 10,000 went to the government. But if I wanted to get on a bus, the public bus system, it worked. It worked like a freaking clock. They showed up on time every time. If you wanted to go to the doctor, if you got sick, you could go to the doctor the next day and you didn't have to pay. There were some really good things. If you were an employee, you worked a 36-hour work week, and I could see why that's attractive. And you got a month's vacation, paid vacation, and and that sounds great. But I will tell you what it also tells me now that I'm an entrepreneur. I would find it hard to pay those wages were increased as well. I can remember a friend of mine who was on the basketball team had a job at McDonald's, and this is back in the mid-90s, paid him something like, I think, $14 or $15 an hour to be an employee at McDonald's. So significantly above what the minimum wage was back in the States at the time, which I think was maybe $5 or $6 an hour. And so he was making $15 an hour, but again, he was paying half of it to the government. So he really got back down to close to, if not equal to, whatever the minimum wage was back in the day. And I'm using $15 as the figure. It could have been 12. I don't know what it was, but it was a pretty damn high wage at the time in the mid-90s to work at a McDonald's. So I see that. But as an entrepreneur, I also see that having to pay those higher wages is difficult. Having to have your employees only work 36 hours a week is difficult. Having to pay 1 month's full paid vacation, that's difficult. Now, that doesn't mean that as an entrepreneur, I don't want to strive for that. I want to pay people good wages. I want to bring people up, right? Like, so every business that we do, we are trying to bring people into something where you can earn a good wage with us and you have upward mobility, so that as you learn a skill set, there's a place for you to move up and a level to move up. And that's how we grow our businesses. That's the model that we love and that we are into. So I guess, going back to my life when I lived in Denmark, I liked how I could go to the doctor when I got sick and it didn't cost anything. I didn't like paying half of my money to the government, even though I was making peanuts. I didn't like the fact that it was very difficult to start a business. And so actually their policies with such a high tax, it discouraged people from starting businesses. So you didn't see the competition, and so things cost more. And that's just the truth. I mean, that was what I experienced while I was living there. It's a beautiful country. I love the people there. I'd live in Denmark again. I mean, I really loved it there. But as far as being a businessman, while I think I could be very successful there, it comes with some additional challenges because they lean so far left and they're so far into the socialism. Really, the tax is one of the big things, because the 50% tax is the floor. Like that's the best tax rate you could get, and it goes up from there. So it discourages people from doing better because you're giving away so much to the government. All right, guys, let's wrap it up. You tell me in the comments section, am I absolutely out of my freaking mind and didn't make any sense? You don't agree with anything I said, or did I make a compelling case for capitalism? Let me know in the comments. I know I'm going to get butchered by a few of you. I'm looking forward to it. Let's have a healthy conversation, guys. Let's try to stay respectful of each other. Honestly, I want to hear your opinions, whether they're good, they're bad, or they're ugly. I'd like to talk to you guys. That's why we do this YouTube channel. Part of the reason anyway is to have these discussions. I hope that one person out there sees this and thinks to themselves, you know what? I really wouldn't want to live in these socialist type of countries. I'd really rather have control and live in these countries that lean more capitalist than they do socialist. And so I see the benefits of that. And maybe I'm changing the mind of a young person, or maybe I'm changing the mind of a capitalist who says that guy's just full of baloney. The government should take care of everybody. And now you're all going to become really happy socialists. Leave me a comment. Let me know. Let's do some business together, though, guys. For those of you that watch the channel all the time, remember, we're real estate investors. We're serial entrepreneurs. We expand our business through partnerships. On this YouTube channel, we're not asking you for anything. Well, today we're asking you for a nice, hefty conversation inside of the comments, but we're really not asking you for anything. We're not selling you anything. We'd like to partner with some people who are out there that are going to have great business ideas, and they're going to have great real estate deals. And maybe we've got some money and we can participate in your deal. Maybe you want to sell us something. Maybe you want to come and help us put together a business here on the island of Puerto Rico or in Florida. We've got multiple properties going on. We've got multiple business opportunities. We're always looking for expansion. Anyways, like and subscribe to the channel, guys. I hope you liked this one. Leave me lots of comments. Let's have fun. God bless.